2012 question 23. Consider the following statements and choose the best answer. Now this is a type of an assertion reason question where you're given two statements and four options. Now the four options I've listed here at the bottom, so please refer to that when doing this question. First statement, when iron and copper are separately immersed in hexane, so this is hexane, completely, iron corrodes faster than copper. Now, first out, what is hexane? Hexane, you'll learn more about this in Book 3A, Book 3B. Now, for now, I'll tell you it's an organic compound. It's a covalent compound. Now, if it's a covalent compound, I'll go ahead and write it here. It's a covalent compound. Okay, it just consists of carbon and hydrogen. It's a hydrocarbon. Now, this topic, this statement, I should say, it's primarily talking about corrosion. You can see it's talking about the corrosion of metals or rusting if it's iron. So it's talking about corrosion. Maybe I'll write it here. Corrosion. And we have learned some certain factors that could influence corrosion or rusting. So we've learned if there's presence of ionic substances, if there is a high temperature, or if there's some presence of some other metals, whether it's lower, it's less reactive than that particular metal, so on and so forth. So here, primarily we'll be looking at whether there's presence of any ionic substance. And as I said earlier, hexane is a covalent compound. That means there are obviously no ions present there. Now, if there are no ions present there, then it basically means that there's nothing for it to increase or decrease the rate of corrosion or the rate of rusting. So in other words, basically nothing happens here. So first statement is completely wrong. Okay, the first statement is not true, it's false. Now let's look at the second statement. Now the second statement is more related to Book 2B, redox reactions, but I'll try to relate it to Book 1C, which is metals. So iron can be oxidized more readily than copper. Now for those of you that are familiar with this term oxidized, it basically means that just like for a compound or an element, whatever it is, if that particular substance is undergoing oxidation, then we will call it the reducing agent, right? And actually, to give you a tip, all metals, there are reducing agents, and non-metals, there are usually oxidizing agents. So here, the hint is, or the tip is, if the metal here is a reducing agent, and if the metal is higher in the electrochemical series, which you will learn it in Book 2B, redox reactions, or if it's higher in the metal reactive series, which you have learned in this particular chapter, then it's definitely going to be oxidized more readily. Now, if I were to write the metal reactivity series over here, so the metal reactivity series M.R.S. Okay, on the top I have potassium, then I have sodium, I have calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, iron, lead, and copper. And there are a couple more metals, but I'm not going to write them. And you can see here, iron is higher in the metal reactivity series when compared to copper. Now, if it's higher, you know that it is more reactive than the one beneath it, right? So if it's more reactive, let me write here, iron is more reactive than copper. If it's more reactive in the metal reactive series, it's definitely going to be oxidized more readily. Now that's the relationship. This is how you can interconnect something that you learned in Book 1C to something you've learned in Book 2B, something you learn in metals to redox reactions. And the electrochemical series that I'm talking about, it's very similar. It's not entirely the same, but it's very similar. Electrochemical series is very similar to the metal reactive series. So sort of you can interchange them together in this way. So the second statement here, this is true. Okay, this is correct. So if the first statement is false, the second statement is true, then the answer should be C.